Well, it's my point of view because they agree with him.
It's not your point of view. It's Einstein's point of view.
Well,
how do you think? Look, let me make this a little clearer for you. Do you think in pictures, or in words, or in emotions?
Myself, all three probably, automatically.
Have you ever thought about it?
Well, it varies in dreams. It's with pictures.
Right. What about when you're...
It's with pictures, but that comes automatically. I don't have to...
Let's not get onto that for the time being. Let's talk about whether you think when you're awake in pictures...
I don't know whether I am awake, Tommy. I think it all could be a big dream. Like Shakespeare said.
Well, okay, well, if it's a big dream...
A huge dream.
If it's a big dream, then, Petal, let's talk about how you're thinking at the moment.
Oh,
whether it's a dream, or whether you're asleep, or whether you're awake, or whether you're a clever man, or whether you're a pillock, let's talk about how you're thinking at the moment. Are you thinking in words, or in pictures, or in feelings?
Me? Myself?
Now, at this moment.
At this moment? Because every moment changes. I don't know. I'm just saying everything automatically, really.
08700 40 50 60. I don't know. I've often cursed being quite clever. Because it means that you do entertain all sorts of labyrinthine thoughts. But I say this of nobody in particular. It must be even worse to not be very clever and yet at the same time have labyrinthine thoughts. 08700 40 50 60. First of all, we've got the logical certainty that piece of knowledge is indisputable. There will always be better looking, more attractive, wittier, more stylish,
wealthier, better cars,
sexier, funnier,
younger
men than you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the club. You know, it's just how it is. You can't change that. You will always have justifiable reasons for being insecure.
But how do I accept that myself?
Time.
Time.
There's nothing you can do about it. How old are you now?
I'm 30.
Can I tell you that 40 is a wonderful age to get to because you just have all your powers still, but you just don't care quite so much. Yeah, and I'm sober. I mean, drink is a wonderful thing. I mean, this is very rare. It's a joy to be at the radio on a Saturday night. You know, normally, I can't remember the last Saturday night when I wasn't not drunk, but you know, happy. Alcohol's wonderful, isn't it? It makes you more interesting. It makes other people more interesting. It enables you to frighten yourself, like the night when I got home from the pub, and I sat down in the armchair in my living room, and the television came on, and I went, oh. And it changed. It went BBC One, BBC Two, and then the volume went right up and right the way down. And it was frightening. And I thought, guys, it's like, because I'd just seen The Exorcist, and I thought, oh, no, Poltergeist. And I thought, gee, because I hadn't been in the house long. I'd only bought it a few weeks before. And I was expecting plasma to come out of the wall. And all it was I'd come in and I'd plonked down in the armchair and I'd sat on the remote. We've all done it. But alcohol, fantastic. I'm sure it wouldn't have occurred to me that Tina Turner looks a bit like Tiger Woods if I was drunk. So there's a lot to be said for an occasional glass of wine. 08700 40 50 60. Amongst other theories which have not been properly put to the test is the possibility that atomic weapons were a figment of the imagination of propaganda mongers from 1945 onwards through to the conclusion of the Cold War. And when you stop and think about the evidence on which you base your belief, which you have perhaps never questioned until now, that atomic weapons were at one point able to effectively destroy planet Earth, so powerful and preponderant were they. When you look at the evidence on which you base that belief, you discover that it's only because the governments of the world tell you that that's true. And of course, they're actually telling the other governments of the world that it's true rather than its subjects. So it could well be that the American population came to believe in hydrogen bombs, both theirs and ours, as it were, simply because the United States felt it was necessary to make sure that they maintained some kind of superiority over the Soviets, who, for geographical reasons, would have been more easily able to infiltrate, consume Africa and Asia than the United States would be able to defend them conventionally. And it may be that the Soviets simply retaliated with an identical piece of propaganda. What have we got to go on? Reports of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and shaky pictures of underground tests. Very poor black and white pictures of mushroom clouds in various atolls in the Pacific countries, but we believe it nevertheless. However, now the theory is out there that perhaps the whole thing was part of a propaganda war. So it might take its place alongside the notion that the United States have never sent a man to the moon, but again it was part of a propaganda war. That one is so accepted as to have been the subject of a film starring O.J. Simpson. What else? That John Major wasn't an English citizen, but he was in fact a Soviet mole planted in this country in order to infiltrate the most powerful political group in this country, which was perceived by the Kremlin as being the Conservative Party. They never expected him to end up as Prime Minister, but he did a good job. Not too sure about that one. Then there's the notion that Chernobyl was responsible for the sudden upsurge in BSE, and perhaps even the human equivalent in this country, since the cloud of radioactive matter which emanated from Chernobyl when it happened crossed this country not once but twice, and also rained on this country, whereas it did not rain on the other countries that it passed over, which were Switzerland, parts of Germany and France. Those were the only other countries which had the cloud from Chernobyl in their skies. And interestingly enough, those are about the only other countries that have also reported a much smaller incidence of BSE than we had in this country. 08700 40 50 60. To Darren, who's... Yeah, my own theory on this is that if you try to think in words, your thought processes are more easy to control. And the reason for that is that we have an organised language, which consists of sentences in which there are always a key number of components which always are in, or we're taught grammatically, have a particular order. So if you think by talking to yourself, and when you're on your own you can do this, you know, if you're on the loo, you can sit there and you can say to yourself, now what am I going to do today? What are the important things I must do? Oh, one thing that I must do is phone Fred, okay?
Yeah.
Now you can do that because language has an order.
Yeah.
Which pictures don't. So if you think pictorially, you will find your thoughts hopping around like a demented frog on a hot tin roof.
Well, if I'm sat there thinking about thinking,
yeah,
you know what I mean, then it's words. But if something pops into my head, then it's pictures.
Yes.
Or if I'm imagining something, it's all pictures.
Yes.
But if I'm actually sort of doing an itinerary or something like that is ordered and structured, then it's always words.
Yeah. And so we're more sane and we're more in control of our thoughts if we think linguistically than if we think pictorially. But not many people have even bothered to notice how they think. They know how tall they are, they know what they look like, they'd recognise themselves if they met themselves, so they understand themselves physically far better than they understand themselves mentally, and yet it is within our heads that we live our lives. And it always strikes me as being a bit of an omission that we don't look at the way in which we think and try to improve it. And just understanding how we think, each of us think, under different circumstances, is the first step you have to take if you're going to understand your own thinking processes.
And do you think there's anything in astrology as to the way we act or think, or...?
Not me, no.
Oh.
Not much. I mean, a little bit, yes. This is what I say. There's something in everything, but no one thing explains everything. No, it's not a... It's not a thing like what your favourite filling in a sandwich tells you about yourself. It's not like that. It's just an attempt to control, or at least be aware of, those sudden moments when you're not as happy as you wish you were, which can, I think, be delivered to you by uncontrollable thinking processes. Because none of us want to be unhappy, and yet most of our unhappiness comes from just what goes on between our ears. So if we can control that, or at least begin to control that, we can reduce, possibly ultimately eliminate, occasions on which we feel hysterically unhappy, confused, insecure, and so forth.
I just had another picture pop in my head. Sorry, Tommy.
Go on then.
The other night you were talking about, you were working on a theory of what happens after death, or the spirit, or, whether this is it or something after. What are your thoughts on that so far?
Well, I'm inclined to think that nature wastes nothing, and therefore there is an essence, which is you and me and everybody, and it is maintained when our body goes off to be turned into something else, more useful. But it's not the minutiae that we think is us. Like, for example, you might be somebody who prefers to smear soy sauce on your spare ribs. That's not retained, because that doesn't amount to anything. But perhaps something which is much more valuable than that, which is your perception of what is good and your feelings of love. I don't know in what those things reside, but it would make more sense when you look at how wonderful this world can be, if those are the things that are retained. Whether that means you have an awareness that once you were Alex in Sidcup or not, probably isn't that important. That's my theory, mate. At the moment, probably change tomorrow.
Thanks for your help, Tom.
Good to talk to you. 08700 Fred, good morning.
Hello, Tommy. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, well, I was going to speak about the Paddington rail disaster. I think it's the inquiry is still ongoing, I believe, at this time, and the images that stand in my mind is when the Queen visited the site, and there was a big cross there, and I'm sure most people will have seen that on the television there. I think there was 29 dead. I'm not absolutely sure of the number of fatalities. But the reason why I'm talking to you this night about it is that the person that's leading the inquiry, he is a lord. I could mention his name. He is a lord. If it's okay to mention his name, I could do. But personally speaking, I have no confidence in this lord whatsoever. And if you want, I could give you an explanation why I have no confidence in this man.
Well, what's it to you, Bernard, if I can put it like that?
Well, I think the victims and their families, they're going to suffer an terrible injustice here. In my opinion, it's going to be whitewashed. It's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to be put down to an act of God. And I think that, like I said, I have no confidence in this Lord that's leading the inquiry, and I could go on to say why I have no confidence in this man.
Do you have any connection with any of this, or are you just an interested party? And if so, what makes you interested in something like this, if you know? Or is it that because you've been told it's important by lots of outlets, you feel you'd better form views on it and battle on behalf of people who, of course, can look after themselves, but you'd like to help them in any way you can? Is that what's happened? Because if that's the case, then you, like a great many people, are something of a victim yourself, because the turning of this into a debate has consumed what might have been a happier set of thoughts for you to have. has overtaken what might have been a much more pleasant and actually productive half hour of your evening, waiting to come on and have a little go about the Paddington rail crash, which is something that one has to be aware of, but one wouldn't wish to dwell on particularly and get too agitated about it unless there's something that we can actually do about it. And it sounds to me as though there's nothing you can actually do about it, so perhaps you need to be released from feeling somehow pressed into service.
Well, Tommy, this lord that's leading the inquiry, he is the self-same lord that led the inquiry over the Piper Alpha disaster.
Did you hear anything I said?
Oh, yes, I'm listening to what you're saying, Tommy.
Well, one thing that can often happen is that gets sort of registered in the next thing that somebody says, rather than you just plough on. I could go home now if you like.
No.
But what I said to you was said to you personally, Bernard. To you personally. I'm just really interested in how it is that you arrive at the belief that you ought to be battling in this way over this tragedy.
Yes. Well, the reason why I'm battling in this way is because to me it's blatant. To me personally, it's blatant injustice. I mean, thankfully, I have no relatives in the Paddington rail disaster. I also, thankfully, have no relatives in the Piper Alpha disaster. But I would ask everyone to consider.
No, hang on. You can't do that. I won't let you do that.
Oh.
It's a Saturday night. People are entitled to consider what they want. And because I think you might be somebody who wants to ask people to start thinking an awful lot about disasters and all the various insecurities and sadnesses that induces, I mean, I'm not saying we should have a party all the time here, but, you know, it is very late and it's a Sunday night and people are in bed and they're about to go to sleep and you wouldn't want to give them bad dreams, would you? Or you wouldn't want to make them feel nervous or upset. So I'm not sure whether you should be asking everybody to consider on this one, Bernard. What's going to become of it if they do? Nothing.
Well...
Except that they'll be upset.
Well, Tommy, I mean, we're not living in the Garden of Eden. I mean, it's a bit of a mess if people are frightened of being upset, isn't it? You know what I mean?
No, Bernard, that's not true. People are upset. Everywhere I go, people are upset. You're upset, Bernard. About something you can't control. Now, there's no greater tragedy than somebody who is upset about something they cannot influence. Because then you're lost.
Tommy, I'd like, if I may, I'd like to mention the connection between Piper Alpha and Paddington.
I don't think it's going to get us anywhere, is it, really, this, Bernard?
Well,
I really think on that this time on a Sunday night, I don't see it myself, really. Not with where the conversation got to. What's it to you? Can I ask you that again?
Well, basically, to come to the nitty-gritty, it's a question of what privatisation means. This is what I'm trying to get down to, Tommy. The meaning of privatisation, the results of privatisation.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I'm trying to establish here.
Why?
Well, basically, I'm pointing out the terrible evils of privatisation.
Why?
Because we see the results, 29 dead in Paddington, 190 in Piper Alpha.
Well, all I can say is that there may be something in what you're probably going to say, although I think I've heard this argument 100,000 times down the last 40 or 50 years. And what you've got at your disposal is a piece of possible evidence which suggests one thing, or it can...
But it's very, very wise book.
Wisdom is a much underrated commodity.
Wisdom's what it's all about, and contentment.
I'm not sidelining here, but just as an aside, there's a thing on CFAX, I think it is. It's called Viewers' Wisdom.
All right.
And every day they put up what they consider to be a little piece of wisdom that CFAX viewers, and I mean, who's sad enough to be a CFAX viewer apart from me? CFAX viewers have phoned in or written in with. And instead of it being about real wisdom, and we know what wisdom is, don't we? It's that elusive suspicion that you understand higher things. Yeah. Instead of it being about that, it's things like, if you are eating an orange and you only wish to consume half the orange, peel half the orange and eat that, and place the other half of the orange still in its peel in the refrigerator where it will remain fresh for days. And that is what passes for wisdom in a lot of circles.
I guess wisdom is being conscious to the fact that there's more to life than everyday life.
You're a very profound person.
The other book?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, as a general rule, you will find, as I do, that to paraphrase Oscar Wilde's comments about cigarette smoking, which he said is a magnificent thing because it's a hunger which, once sated, is immediately replaced by further hunger. Sorry. It's about airline pilots, because we've got an airline pilot who rings the show from time to time. Very hostile man, and hates the fact that he's hooked on Talksport. You know, it just makes him really angry. He somehow sees it as demeaning that he enjoys phone-in programmes. You know, they're a funny lot. It's what £70,000 a year will do for you. Anyway, listen to this. This is a true story. An employee of a firm called US Air, who happened to have the last name of Gay, got on a plane recently using one of his company's free flight programmes, okay? So he's not paying for his seat because he works for the company. However, when Mr. Gay tried to take his seat, he found it being occupied by a paying passenger. So, not to make a fuss, which is what you're told to do if you've got a free seat on a plane, he simply chose to sit in an empty seat nearby. Unknown to this chap, Mr. Gay, another US air flight at the airport experienced mechanical problems, and the passengers on this flight were being rerouted to various different aeroplanes, and some of them were put on Mr. Gay's flight. So, which meant that anyone who was holding a free flight ticket was being discreetly bumped off the plane to make way for paying passengers. And this happens, right? So some airline officials, armed with a list of the freebie ticket holders, boarded the plane to remove them. Of course, our Mr. Gay was not sitting in his assigned seat, if you remember. So when the ticket agent approached the seat where Mr. Gay was supposed to be sitting, she asked this startled first-class customer, "Excuse me, are you gay?" The man very shyly nodded that he was, at which point she demanded, "Then you'll have to get off the plane." Can you imagine? What a moment. Now, our Mr. Gay, overhearing the mistake that the ticket agent was making, tried to clear up the situation. And he leaned across and said, "You've got the wrong man. I'm gay." And this caused a very angry third passenger, who got wind of what was going on, to stand up and yell, "Hell, I'm gay too! You can't kick us all off!" Isn't this cracking stuff? Anyway, the confusion apparently escalated as more and more right-minded passengers began yelling that US had no right to remove gays from their flight. Now, that is a true story. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, to have been there. That's the quality of the emails. Nice one. Who did that come from again? That deserves a big check. That's CHECK, not CHEQUE. From Gideon, who lives in Chigwell. Nice one. Thank you for that. Let's go fishing. We've got a man on the riverbank who wants to join in. It's John, who's near Whitney. Hi, John. How's it going?
All right, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Very well, very well.
Have you got any views on biscuit dunking?
Very strong views.
Have you?
Trenchant views.
Yeah, because we've been down a shop and we've bought loads and loads of biscuits, and I remember reading in the paper, I don't know whether it was this year or last year, about some university somewhere that they spent absolutely thousands of pounds on survey to find out why some biscuits got soggier quicker than others.
Well, you want digestives plain, don't you?
Yeah, but
That's your basic dunking biscuit.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, there was months doing this, and when it comes to the end of it, all they found out, well, they didn't find anything out, basically. Is it?
Rich teas are quite good.
Do you remember imps?
No.
Little imps come in a little box of matches size little thing.
I don't.
Nasty little things.
I'll tell you what, I used to like peanut brittle, if you want to get exotic with us.
Who?
Peanut
Oh,
brittle.
these weren't exotic.
Imps
And
are
chewing
exotic.
gum, you was on about chewing gum last week.
Talk about anything.
Chewing gum, you was talking about that. About where it come from and everything.
Makes you go to the toilet nowadays.
Oh, I don't know.
The sugar-free ones have got a substitute that's sweet but has a laxative effect. This should be widely known. It's a fact.
Well, I don't know much about that, tell you the truth.
Well, you want to, if you're by the riverbank and you're not in sight of
I don't
facilities,
fish rivers.
you need to know that.
I don't fish rivers. It's only lakes.
You fish lakes.
Listen, I was taught at school in the Great Inventions that chewing gum was something that was originally found in trees or something. You couldn't buy it from the shops. You was given it as a freebie when you bought some house, and it was called chickle gum.
The truth of it is, it was probably the invention of the Peruvian Indians who used to chew cocoa leaves for the effect.
There's nothing you don't know, is there?
No. No, if you chew the leaf of the cocaine plant, then you receive an effect.
Really?
And for thousands of years, the Incas in Peru, and they were very wise people in many ways. They used to revere children who were born with what they called the jaguar people.
Right.
In our culture, we call it Down syndrome. Amongst the ancient Peruvians, they called them jaguar people, and they were revered because they had so much affection and love and a kind of godlike simplicity. Whereas in this country, I don't know, it's not the same. I merely mentioned this.
I'm speechless.
Don't be.
Listen.
What biscuits have you bought?
We've got Jaffa cakes.
No, you can't dunk Jaffa cakes. Don't even think of it.
We've got...
Get out of the building now.
We've got hobnobs. We've got the lot. We've got everything.
Hobnobs are okay, but you can't do a backflip with
we
them.
can't come to a theory of our own.
You need basic
It's
digestives.
all a load of... Well, you know what?
Not
it's
Gary...
like
Fig
the
rolls? No. Garibaldi's? No.
What's the theory of your wife being able to talk if you phoned her up now with my bell end in there?
I was very poor, very poor. And not in the slightest bit shocking as either, really. I mean, I can't be shocked. It's, I'm that impervious. So, well, I mean, I say you have to do better than that. You can't do any better than that. Very poor. 08700 40... Last week, I was trying desperately to read the ingredients in chewing gum off the wrapper. I don't know if you ever looked at a chewing gum wrapper. The writing is absolutely microscopic.
Yeah.
And the light in the studio...
So's the packet, though.
Yeah. The light in the studio is always dim, so I had great difficulty reading these ingredients to air. And this bloke came on and he claimed he was a scientist, and he was livid about the mispronunciation of some chemical that's in chewing gum. Livid he was. So I like taunting scientists because they're a dreadful, humourless breed, most of them. And scientists will tell you that they do know what causes gravity. They do, and they do understand the process, but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't even understand anything that's something as basic as why we stick to the earth.
Yeah, true.
You know.
What do you think of Paul Davis?
Who?
Paul Davis.
Sorry?
At the train station.
Give me a
Very nice.
break. Give me a break.
Anyway, I'm moving
the
to
pits of the
soon.
universe. I should know. I was born there. It's the pits of the
Wait,
universe.
you in Feltham? Really?
Absolutely. Yes, up from the wreck.
Never. Rugby league.
No, I've never been to a rugby league game.
Never. I'm just wondering why the sport's so sort of dismissed as a northern culture sport. Just wonder what your views on it are.
Well, it's not dismissed as a northern culture sport. It is regarded as a northern culture sport in as much as it largely is.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, it's not dismissing it.
Yeah.
It does have a really... Go on, keep going. Yeah, go on, keep going. Keep going. Go on, no. Keep going. Go on. Come at me, go on.
Your wife, could I Mark Pembridge is beauty.
Doesn't it doesn't bother us. It doesn't bother us, kids.
Sours.
It doesn't. It doesn't bother us, kids. It doesn't worry us. Doesn't worry us. Doesn't bother us.
Nico Vasson. There's only one Johnny Cover. Whoa, Johnny Cover.
No,
There's only one Nico Vasson.
doesn't bother us. How does that feel?
Your wife.
Forgive me, listener. I'm just gonna see it. I'm gonna see it off this. These are the fellas who swear in the... I'll just turn down it. These are the fellas who swear in the bus in a slightly loud enough voice for you to hear, because they think it's going to annoy you. And the only way to disarm them, right, is to take away the weapon that they think they've got, which is that they're going to upset and shock you. And they can't. No, you can't shock me, mate.
You are, mate.
You can't do it. You're not good enough. You ain't got what it takes. You're a wuss. You're a wuss.
I'm not a wuss.
You're a wuss.
Your wife.
You're a little wally.
Oh, come and say
And
it
you're
to my
no
face.
good.
Come and say
You're
it to my
weak.
face.
You're pale. You're
me.
cheesy.
Are you
You're
laughing?
useless. You're rubbish. You haven't got what it takes. I'm too good for you. I'm too tough for you. I'm too strong for you. We think you're babies. You're babies.
You've ever had.
Babies.
What a nice man.
You're babies.
What a nice
You're
man.
babies, and you can't get girls.
What a nice man.
You can't get girls.
I do need some of these, mate.
None of you have got any girlfriends. It's a Saturday night and you're in. You're useless. You're rubbish. You're in on a Saturday night. You stink.
You do.
You're weak boys.
Smell.
You're weak boys. You'll never get any girls.
No.
You'll never know what a girl is like because they'll never go out with you because you're rubbish.
The argument, you can't take it, can you?
You're rubbish.
You.
You're rubbish.
Hi, it's Mr. T here. I'm gonna whip his ass.
Shut up, fool. Peter Bingman.
Hi, it's Peter Bingman here. I'm gonna whip his ass for him.
The mouth.
Your babies.
Kilimanjaro.
Your babies.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You're really seriously bored with them. But they are the sort of boys that you get at the back of the bus. And older people allow the boys the privilege, okay, of arming themselves with loud voices, slightly rude words, and slightly shocking behaviour. And then they get offended by it. And let me give you an important tip in life. Do not get offended by anybody who's trying to offend you. Never, ever get offended by it. And once you realise that you don't have to get offended by it, okay, it's easy. And you've totally taken away the only weapon they're ever likely to have. These are not people with bricks. These are not people with baseball bats. You know? These are people who cannot extend their attempts to upset people for no reason whatsoever. They want to upset you. They want to upset your mum. They want to upset your children in public by just posturing a little bit. They don't know why. It's because hormones are, well, not coursing through their veins, sort of trickling around their muscle tissue, and it's too much for them. And so for some reason, they want to offend. And all you have to do is just not be offended. And they're going to talk about it now in their mum's living room. She's gone out, she's playing bingo, for about 20 minutes now. And they're going to kid each other that it was fantastic. Ha ha ha! It was fantastic. And I did that Peter Venkman thing. Ha ha ha. Right. And he thought we were a real call. Ha ha ha. And then what happens is they'll go home and they'll go to bed. After about 10 minutes, they'll be lying there. And they will realise just how sad they are. And I have to tell you that doesn't actually feel good. I'm only engaged in this little activity here, and we'll draw this to a close. Because it's the right thing to do, and I'm a teacher. See, they're now, I've got them up now, and they're now rapt. They're listening to every word of it. I can hear myself, you see. They've all gone quiet in their living room.
Well, here!
There you see. Now they come back. They were listening to every word. There you go, fellas. That's how a class act does it. One day, you might come up to my ankles. 08700 40 50 60 is the number. Peter, who's called from Wembury. Wembury? Peter, you're on Talksport.
It's Banbury, actually.
Banbury, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to talk about Arsene Wenger and the discussion he was having this week about blacks being better at football than white people.
Okay.
Well, basically, do you agree with the man?
I didn't hear his actual comments, so I've only got your interpretation of what he said.
Oh, have you not been listening to the news?
No, I never listen to the news, no.
Well, why is that, sir?
Because the news is disturbing.
It may be.
No, it is disturbing, since you...
It's not always disturbing.
Yes, it is, always disturbing.
That's
supposed to be disturbing. I'm a journalist, I know about these things.
No, you don't. Yes. I don't think so, sir. If you don't watch the news, you're silly.
No, I've taken a very... it's not easy avoiding the news, but I do it because... Well, for the reasons I've outlined.
Why is that?
Well, I've just outlined the reasons, because it's disturbing, and I don't like having to repeat myself.
Why?
Why? Because it bores me, never mind about people listening.
Ah, I see where you're coming from, sir. I have a small problem, and I was wondering...
I don't think it's a small problem, I think it's a big problem. 0879, what's happened suddenly? It's 10:30, are the pubs emptying out or something? Well, the youth club, isn't it, really? Not the pubs, the youth clubs are emptying out. 08700 40 50 60 is the number, or you can email the show. Yeah, but it don't work like that, does it? And you know it doesn't work like that. This thing about if we all join forces, then we'll get something done, that doesn't work. What is it you're hoping is going to get done? What do you want to happen? You want some coppers to go to prison, right?
Not just that, Tommy.
What do you want? What do you want to happen? Let's write down the list of things you would most like to happen. You'd like some coppers to do time, is that right?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Number two, what else would you like?
I think that there should be an independent public inquiry.
Well, how's that going to help anybody? And how's some coppers doing time going to help anybody?
Hold on, Tommy. I've just said independent
all right.
public inquiry.
Yeah, well, let's get on to your first. Let's go with your first point for a second. You would like some coppers to go to prison. What good's that going to do?
Absolutely. Well, if you're put in charge of the safety of great numbers of football fans who are placing their lives in your hands, Tommy...
My question is very simple, and you aren't even beginning to answer it. If you don't mind,
come on.
I'm asking you this, and only this. What good will that do?
It'll send a message to every other senior policeman who looks at football supporters with contempt. You know how we're treated at football grounds, Tommy.
Let me just test that. Let me just test your judgment of what good that will do. Do you really think that everybody hasn't taken notice?
No, they haven't taken notice because there's been a cover-up, Tommy.
No, Joe, for some reason I'm finding your patronising use of my name a little bit annoying.
Well, piss off, Tommy, because I think you're a patron.
Piss off yourself, then. Sorry about that. Appalling business. I'm not gonna help people who have a fundamental agenda, which is as confused, as uncooperative, and as hostile as Joe's. And he does not speak on behalf of the families of the people who died at Hillsborough. They have fought a gallant, an honest, and a caring campaign, and I believe are being guided rightly in seeking some closure on the event now. And it won't help if someone like Joe, who can't conduct the argument competently or sympathetically, tries to speak on their behalf. 08700 40 50 60. Or you can email the show by going to talksport.net and click on the button that says email the show. Have you or any...
Okay, what identify this sound and noise. Clippity-clop, 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 bang, bang, clippity-clop, clippity-clop. What's that?
Don't know.
It's an Amish drive-by shooting.
It's a what?
An Amish drive-by shooting. One more for Tommy.
All right, hold on the same track. What goes clop?
I don't know.
A one-legged horse.
Right. What's the difference between light and hard?
Light and hard. Don't know.
You can sleep with a light on.
Thank you very much indeed. 08700 40 50 60 is the number. Talksport. 08700 40... I'll start again. 08700 40 50 60. I'm Tommy Boyd.
Great.
Now, you can join a club because you support Manchester United, or you can join a club because your politics are to the left of centre.
Yeah.
But you'll always find yourself in a minority club doing things like that. But if you want to join a club, right, for people who do not know what to do in between the only two things they're certain about, which is that they have been born and that they are going to die, you are joining the biggest club, the biggest mass movement planet Earth has ever known. There are 4.25 billion of us and rising.
Yes.
And my guess is that in the still quiet of a lonely night,
yes,
every single one of us is in that club.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So at least we're not alone.
Yeah, but what I'd love people to ring up and talk to you about is what they think that they might say. Well, I am going to be the best athlete in the world.
Well, then what have you got?
Well, I mean, is it possible that you can do that?
Well, then why would you do that? What good is it to know that you can run round an orange track faster than anybody else? I mean, if that's what you do to earn your daily bread, that's fine. But I have a feeling you're talking about a higher motivation than just, the source of your salary.
Yeah, but I mean, how can you... what I'm trying to say is...
Do nothing.
Do nothing and let it happen.
Do nothing. One great Chinese philosopher said that it is a most honourable thing for a person to die unknown and unnoticed. Because although they may not have come to anybody's attention, because mostly people come to people's attention because they interfere, and therefore probably do not do a great deal of good, the most noble thing you can ever do is keep yourself to yourself and just live a quiet, private, good life.
I do that, Tommy.
And I'll see you in heaven if only I were as good as you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tommy, can you get people to ring up and just say what their ambitions are? And I
hear what you're saying, and if that happens, that happens.
If they think they can do it, and that's what I want to hear.
All right, well, stay by your radio.
Yeah,
If that happens, that happens. I'm on a Saturday night in particular, I'm not in the habit of asking people to get their heads around any particular topic. So we've had people dunking biscuits, and we have talked about the Hillsborough tragedy, although that didn't go very far because we weren't terribly happy about the quality of the judgments that were being made there. But whatever is the agenda that you want to bring, whether it be something fresh or whether it be in reaction to something that you have heard, whether it's sport, this is Talksport, or whether it's so-called news and current affairs, although I prefer it if it is from that province, that it is something of which you have personal experience rather than you've just been fed it via the news media, or if it's simply something that's dominating your grey matter. 08700 40 50 60, or you can email the show. Go to talksport.net and click on the button that says email the show. Talksport, I'm Tommy Boyd. Very Uri Geller.
No, it's a Zion MC400.
Yeah. Oh, one of them.
And I've also got a little hand one.
Yeah.
Which I'm not very good at them.
No.
And I've also got a PlayStation.
Mm.
And you're not the Tommy Boyd?
Yeah.
Well,
no, I'm not the Tommy Boyd. I wish I was. I wish I had his money.
Whoever it is.
I'm another Tommy Boyd. There's three Tommy Boyds. There's the footballer, there's me, and there's the one who did all that great art work on telly.
Oh, no, you mean, no, you're talking about the old man with the white hair.
No, I'm not talking about Tony Hart.
Oh, Tony, yeah, you're right, he's lovely, isn't he?
He's lovely.
He was on the Keyhole the other day.
Marvellous programme.
Lovely man.
I love that programme.
I love it too.
Except David Frost is getting very, very, very lugubrious now.
Is he getting doddery?
He's getting lugubrious.
He's trying to do a Chris Tarrant, he goes wrong.
He goes...
Lugubrious is the word.
Now...
Yeah, it gets my wick, actually.
For you at home...
My darling, what?
And the studio audience, but not...
I want to talk to Tommy.
Our
I've actually got me plug-in. I've got the wheel on the end. It's brilliant.
It is.
E-T-E-F-O-N.
Remember, the clues
you, my darling.
Are there.
Hello, it's me, come on, I'm in a good mood. Very good mood indeed.
Lovely talking to you. Thank you for your call. Line 1, you're live on Talksport. My God, it's getting more and more like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
All right.
Yes, thank you. You?
got a classic piece of. I don't think anybody's ever heard this. It's an outtake from a studio session with Orson Welles doing an advert.
Oh,
you want
yes.
to hear it?
Is it the peas one?
Yeah.
Marvellous.
Right.
Away you go.
Remote farm in Lincolnshire, where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that?
Yeah, so in other words, I'd start half a second late.
Don't you think you really want to say July over the snow? Isn't that the fun of it?
If you make it almost when that shot disappears, it'll make my...
I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July peas grow there. We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July...
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.